helpful, fast, on brand, professional. Every specification you have ever written leaks in the same place, and it is not the requirement you forgot. It is the adjectives you kept. Last episode, I gave you the one-page spec, goal, non-goals, edge cases, examples, acceptance checks, 15 minutes before any prompt that matters. If you ran the exercise, you handed that page to a model with the instruction satisfy this wrongly, and I can guess where it got in. It did not get in through the goal, it got in through a word like helpful, or robust, or professional. Words that feel precise when you write them, because you can see exactly what you mean. The trouble is that nobody else is inside your head, and you are never the one reading. An adjective is a compressed judgment. When you write on brand, you are compressing 100 small decisions about tone, phrasing, and what never gets said, and you are trusting the reader to decompress every one of them exactly as you would. A colleague who has sat next to you for years sometimes can. A model cannot, and neither can the contractor, the new starter, or you in 6 months. The compression is the leak. So, this episode's technique, and it is the sharpest heading on that one page, the example table. For every load-bearing adjective in your spec, you write 3 rows. A typical case, 1 real input, and the output you actually want, written out in full. An edge case, an input where the rule bends, and what the output does about it. And a counterexample, an input, with an output marked never this, and every row takes a real input, no placeholders. The rule underneath the technique is simple, rows are checkable, prose is not. You can hold a result against a row and say matches, or does not match. You cannot hold a result against the word helpful. 3 good rows beat 3 paragraphs of adjectives, because rows can be checked, and paragraphs can only be believed. Remember the strange finding from last episode, researchers stripped detail out of well-structured prompts and correctness barely moved, and sometimes it improved. Volume was doing nothing, structure was doing everything. An example table is structure in its most concentrated form. There is no connective prose to strip away, every cell is load-bearing, and that reading of the finding is the whole case for this technique. None of this is new, and that is a point in its favor. Specification by example has been a named practice for over 20 years, behavior-driven development built an entire workflow on it, and every generation of that lineage learned the same lesson, prose requirements dissolve in translation, and concrete examples do not. What is genuinely new is what happens to the rows afterwards, and we will get there in a moment. Back to our reply suggester, the spec says draft should be helpful and on brand, and those 2 adjectives are carrying the entire customer experience, so we pin them. The typical row, a customer asks for a refund on day 12, well inside the 30-day window. The output cell holds the reply we actually want, and it cites the refund policy by name, confirms the money is coming, and lists the 2 steps, with no apology theater. The edge row, an angry customer demanding a refund on day 90, absolutely certain they are entitled to one. The output stays warm, refuses to bend the policy, and offers the thing policy genuinely allows, which is store credit. And the counterexample row, the one that earns its keep, a draft that opens with "we are so sorry," and promises a goodwill payment our policy does not offer. Kind tone, perfect grammar, catastrophic promise, marked never this. 1 table, 3 rows, and helpful suddenly has edges a machine can be held against. Now for the part that is new. In late 2025, a ThoughtWorks analysis of spec-driven development reported something uncomfortable, agents ignoring the specs they were given. Precision invested in prose is not reliably honored, because nothing enforces prose. A row is different, because a row can run. Input in, output out. Compare, your counterexample becomes a check that fails loudly the day the machine promises money you do not owe. That is the quiet superpower of this technique in the AI era. Examples compile. The table you write this week does not retire when the spec ships. It becomes evaluation data, and in episode 7, when we wire this feature's evil harness, its golden set of 50 real tickets will trace straight back to these rows. The self-check is the prediction test. Hand someone your table, just the table, with the output cells of 2 or 3 rows covered, and ask them to predict what belongs there. A colleague works, and a model works too, and costs nothing. Where the prediction matches your intent, the table is doing its job. Where it disagrees, resist the urge to explain what you really meant, because you will not be there to explain it when it matters. Every disagreement is a missing row, so write the row. The exercise: take the spec you wrote after last episode, or the vaguest requirement you currently own, find the adjective carrying the most weight, and give it 3 rows: typical, edge, never this. Then run the prediction test on a colleague or a model. The artifact is the example table worksheet, linked below with this episode's receipts. And you will know it worked when the predictions come back matching, from someone you never briefed. One question should be nagging you, though, and my rows came from somewhere. I knew the angry customer on day 90 was the edge that mattered, and I knew the fatal draft was the over-apologetic one. What do you do when you do not know where the edges are? Next episode, the technique for exactly that, using the machine's own speed to discover the intent you do not know you have, before you commit to a spec that is precise about the wrong thing.